Welcome to one more Chiro Speaking Podcast. This is Roberto Monaco, and today I have a mentor, my brother, a role model, my friend, Dr. Stephen Franson. What's up, buddy?
Roberto, what's up, my brother? Psyched to be here today.
Good. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to have an amazing time. This guy literally needs no introduction. If you're a chiropractor and you were breathing, you know who the guy is. But I feel like I got to read some of the bad assery credentials that you have, you know what I mean? And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with Dr. Franson. Dr. Franson is a chiropractor champion and a champion for chiropractor. He's the founder of this amazing coaching group called The Remarkable Practice, which I have links in the video. You can learn more about his coaching group, which are being part of so many events we'll be talking about. He is known in the chiropractic profession as the system guy. And I knew that before when I saw you speak at Cal Jam many years ago. And I'm like, man, this guy's a system guy. But then when I really got to know him, like, wow, it took my beliefs to a whole new level. He systemized everything. He was in 2017, he was named one of the most influential chiropractors on the planet. The best way to describe, for instance, is this. I personally have a lot of role models. I have role models in like speaking role model. I have a marketing role model. I have a copywriting role model. But it is really, really rare to find someone who is a role model for everything. And here, man, brother, from my heart to yours, you are the way you show up in your business, the way you show up as a father, as a husband, as a friend, being around you, man. You were with very few people that can talk that you overall role model and look up to you. My wife look up to you guys. So I'm so grateful for our chat today. Help some chiros and spend time with you. I'm super, super stoked.
My dad always says when somebody's complimenting you, don't interrupt them. And man, I'm fighting it.
I forgot to say that you're the king of power lines, by the way, guys. You're watching us, and if you haven't picked up this book, just go get this book, The Remarkable Practice. And it's funny because a lot of times when you read chiropractic books, and you'd be like, well, I'm not chiropractor. Me personally, I'm not chiropractor, right? So I work with chiropractors. But man, this is a business book, and it's stacked. The power lines, you read one line, you'd be like, like the twin engines of success are your vision story and your core values. A success is when you can achieve alignment between your core values, your vision story, and your behaviors. Patients live because they lose clarity around why they should stay. I mean, the whole book is stacked, brother. Incredible. No, it's incredible. So today we're going to be talking about growing the eye of the storm, which, I mean, there's only 8 billion people who wants to know how to do that. You know what I mean? So we're going to talk about that. But before, let me just tell you something, I want to bring you back some memories here. I don't know if you remember, brother, this picture specifically. Remember that?
I do remember that.
Yeah. So that one was Cal Jam 2016.
Yep.
With our ladies. And I want to share here to our audience how you personally impact my business. When the COVID started, obviously we do coaching and speaking. I had 20, 30 events lined up. They all disappear like most people. And I remember having a conversation. I was supposed to speak in Chicago. And I remember having a conversation. You said, man, let's do this event virtual. And this is a picture of that virtual event, the Remarkable Attraction in April 2020. And I'll tell you, as a speaking coach, and I have experience doing webinars, live events, videos, but I never done a virtual event. And that was my first truly virtual event. And that event, brother, that I did, and I was invited to speak at your event, really changed my life, because from that, I really understood the power of the idea. So I was super grateful. And then my first full-blown virtual event was a day and a half, was with you. And my first hybrid event, my first hybrid event was with you too. A great picture here we did in Phoenix. You put together a fantastic event. And if you want to summarize Franson's and Remarkable Practice, this is a good picture. Is everybody having fun and have a good time, and the quality of people to attract. So thanks so much, buddy. That was a long introduction, but it's
So I think I have to say that remarkable does not imply perfect. So I want to make sure everybody hears that I'm showing up as just like everybody. I walk with a limp, and this I'm blessed to have an extraordinary support staff and an awesome team around me, and that starts with my awesome wife Camilla, who just makes all of this even possible. So if you're listening, honey, I appreciate you. And just if I'm good at anything, Roberto, it's building world-class teams, and I consider you part of our team, right? So I love you, brother, and I love working with you. I love your commitment to excellence and always growing and going. So chiropractic is blessed by you, and you help more people. So you're my friend, man.
I love it, brother. I love it. So let's talk about growing the Iron Storm. What is the situation that you're seeing? And I know your clients are high performing, but what's the situation that you're seeing in terms of like overall industry? What is the headspace of most chiropractors right now?
So we've all been through this extraordinary last. What are we saying now? It's 18 months. It's 18 months.
Almost 18 months. 18 months. Yeah.
It's been an extraordinary 18 months, and what an awesome opportunity to grow as a leader. Regardless of where you are in your home or your business, in your practice, in your life, we're all leading. And what an opportunity to grow as a leader. So this was just a big fast forward button for leadership for all of us. And I know we're going to look back. This is clearly historic. It's it's almost stating the obvious to, most of these things at this point. It was like, yeah, we get it, but I don't want you to miss the benefit of being in an environment like this. So we all have 4 limited resources, right? Every person has 4 limited resources: time, energy, focus, and money. And the way you navigate the seasons of your life like this very often is a reflection of how well you can marshal those 4 limited resources. And you have to know, like, what's the most important one to stay focused on. Like in some seasons of your life, you just have to really marshal your money, right? So other times of your life, you've got to marshal your time, right? It becomes all about time management or time mastery. This past season, and I'd say the season that we're still in, has everything to do about marshaling your focus and just being really, really mindful and really intentional about what you're focusing on. Because so much at this point can feel out of control. We feel like we're at effect. And very often people in a storm feel that way. It's like, wow, we have this ridiculous environment that's going on right now. And the question is what are you focusing on? Because I love the way DeMartini talks about your zone of influence. Or your sphere of influence. If you focus outside of your sphere of influence, your influence shrinks. If you focus inside of your sphere of influence, your influence expands. So many people have gotten caught up in focusing outside of their sphere of influence and taking their eye off of where they do have influence, right? So, they feel their influence is contracting. It just, it's this negative downward spiral versus this upward virtual spiral. If you learn the discipline of staying focused on where you do have influence and pouring your other resources into that. So I think that's probably a premise for where I want to start here today, because I want this just to help everyone. I want to make sure you learned from what we've been through and use that to ready yourself to navigate these next few months and potentially years gracefully and productively. So, I'm going to encourage everybody to recognize that right now, there is an increased need for what it is we provide as chiropractors, right? So everybody knows that. And again, I feel like I'm stating the obvious, but let's start there, right? Because we could talk about everything else. But I think what you recognize is whenever there's a massive issue and a big problem like this, a giant upset, that's a giant opportunity, right? So we all know that before COVID, pre-COVID, what the world needed was chiropractic, but we all know that since COVID has this catastrophe has sort of enveloped us, there's never been a more stressful time in history or modern history, right? So nothing that anybody could put their finger on where it's just such a global issue, right? So there's so much stress, there's so much suffering, there's so much negative impact that's going on right now. There's so much confusion. There's so much chaos. There's so much crisis. There's never been a greater need for somebody who shows up with clarity, with somebody who shows up with conviction, when somebody shows up with certainty, right? So certainty is the most attractive force on the planet. And, what we've seen with our practices in the Remarkable practice is they're having their best weeks, best months, best quarters, best years ever. Not because they're not impacted by the storm, that it's not that their town or their state or their province or their part of the world isn't getting impacted like everyone else's is. It's just that they're focusing where they have influence as opposed to being distracted by the cat circus that's going on around them.
I love that focus where you have influence. I have a question for you because I think we're all guilty of that. I know I am for sure. I'm just right now focused when you have influence. How do you fight the fight without being caught up on the fight, if that makes sense? In other words, how you fight the fight, yet you focus and you don't allow all the distractions impact you emotionally. I think there's a lot of questions. How do you personally do it? Because I know you have some, you're always fighting, always advocating, but I feel at least that you are advocating, you're leading, but you don't get caught up on the emotion.
Yeah.
How do you do that? What is your strategy for not getting caught up on it?
So I feel like I've been training for this my whole life. So I will share just some tactical things that have helped me personally. And, hopefully it'll add value for everybody that's listening, because I think these are things you could actually put on the ground tomorrow. So I have been doing morning rituals for 30 years. So I own my morning. That first 90 minutes of my day is mine. And I get my state right. Start with prayer and meditation. I'm in the Bible. I'm in reading something professional. I'm always growing and going in that sense. I'm journaling. I'm doing my to-do lists. I have my rituals that I do. I like, where my mind is first thing in the morning, to get that state right and get myself just in such a state that I'm just ready to serve for that day. And, to get myself into a place where I can be a great leader despite what's going on around me. So that's, I think that is the most important place to start, is actually the way you start your day. Right. So, and then in the Bible, it says that we were to be in this world, but not of this world. And I think that really applies today. So it's like, the idea of like, you don't want to be in denial, right? So I don't think it's a good idea to get caught up in all the conspiracy theories and, make that part of your brand and your brand messaging. Just personally, I don't find that to be productive, right? So you should know what's going on. You should be aware. And I feel like I'm like a third-party observer, an objective, critical observer, paying attention to what, let's call it, both sides are saying, and more importantly, what both sides are hearing. Because, when we're working with patients, when we're working with doctors, when we're working with team members, when we're working with our communities, I want to be really aware of what they're hearing, right? So I want to be able to take the temperature of what's going on in the communities. I want to know, what are they hearing? So I know the enemy, right? So I know the dragons I have to slay, right? So I hear so many people say, I don't even watch the news. I'm just completely disconnected. I'm off social media, what have you. And I'm not saying that that's a bad idea. It's just not the way I deal with it. So I get myself ready. I'm very grounded. I know where I stand and what I stand for. I know what I know and I know what I believe. So when I do take in media, it's from that critical thinking, objective third party. I'm trying to stay informed so that I can help others get there. So I'm not irrelevant, right? Or completely disconnected, right? So I think it's a good idea to picture yourself observing it and saying, well,
that's a good idea. That's a good framework.
It's fascinating to see what they're hearing, right?
That's a really good framework.
Yeah. And then you can undo the knots that are being tied in their minds, right? So, more efficiently. And then I think, to be able to recognize that we're in this awesome position where we can educate our communities, because there's been such a gap that's been left by the media, by the medical world, by the government, et cetera. There's just such a gap in information for the communities. And, there's so much confusion because the quote unquote experts just keep contradicting not only each other, but themselves. There's flip-flopping. I mean, it's just like, what an unbelievable opportunity for somebody to show up with a story that doesn't change, right? So for somebody to show up with clarity and conviction around what they know to be true, to stand on granite, to teach from right now, to lead from, that resonates. Innately, we are attracted to people who have a certainty. It's a survival instinct, right? So, somebody who has certainty is going to be very attractive, because on a DNA level, it resonates with people. They're attracted to that. So, stand on your granite. Don't get distracted. Don't commiserate. Don't talk about what you don't know about, right? So just stay in your space and tell the story, right? And throw strikes right down the middle. The power of this is we don't have to make them right to make them wrong to make us right. And that's a really critical thing. So I'll say that again. We don't have to make them wrong to make us right. Right. So at the end of the day, what we're dealing with is there's not just a toxicity of information getting out there and this fear-driven, broken belief system, this outside-in belief system, but there's a real deficiency in truth. Right. So there's a deficiency that we can fill that gap. And when we show up and we don't have to make them wrong to make us right, it's a blue ocean. Right. So Roberto, you've heard me talk about this third tier healthcare story, and man,
why don't you let's talk about a little bit, introduce that to our viewers. It's such a powerful concept, please.
Yeah, so for chiropractors, I mean, for my note takers, this is something you're going to want to grab because this should be on your dry erase board tomorrow, or Monday, or Tuesday if you're celebrating Memorial Labor Day. There's this message that we've been our remarkable practice doctors have been using, and it's just been unbelievably fruitful, right? So, or totally believably fruitful, because it's always been our story, right? So there's 3 tiers to healthcare. There's 3 approaches to healthcare. The bottom tier, or the lowest tier, is the treatment of disease. And that's waiting for people to get sick and treating people when they get sick and trying to keep people from dying, right? And then there's a second tier of healthcare, which is the prevention of disease, where those tactics are about, trying to keep people safe. That's social distancing and, gloves and masks and no hugs and high fives and just stay at home and hide and hope and pray. Right. So, that's what everyone's talking about. Right. So, thank heavens there are experts that are in that space, because of course, there's times when those things are appropriate. Right. But there's a third tier of healthcare that nobody's talking about. And honestly, it just blows my mind, because there's such a market gap. Just as a business person, I'm like, how is nobody stepping in this gap right now? And why aren't people talking about the fact that nobody's talking about this third tier, which is the promotion of health, right? So this is all about keeping people healthy, right? So this is all about strengthening the human being. See, the first 2 tiers have nothing to do with the host. It has nothing to do with the human being, right? So no matter, you could be an advocate and exercise those first tiers of healthcare. It doesn't change the health of the human being. The third tier of healthcare is all about us, right? And here we found ourselves, we're 18 months into a conversation, 18 months of a conversation that's focused on the strength of the virus, right? So, it's time for us to change that conversation from the strength of the virus to the strength of the host, right?
That's one of my favorite power lines. Of your power lines. It's one of my favorite ones. I love that.
Yeah. And it resonates with people, when because it's novel, right? They're like, yeah, how come nobody's been talking about that? It's tragic, man. We've wasted 18 months of opportunity to elevate people's awareness, to equip them to make better healthcare choices. And so much of this is just, we could democratize this stuff tomorrow, because most of it's free, when you think about like get more sleep, right? So hydrate, right? So, and then we can spend big money and supplement with vitamin D, so get out in some sunshine and fresh air. So much of this is just readily available and it's free for the most part, just to get some momentum, at the very least, get some consciousness. So if you can show up as the chiropractor, you can show up as the one voice in town that gives people back hope. Like it gives them an opportunity to take back control and influence over their health and their family's health trajectory. You're gonna be the white knight that has that, that message for them that not only gives them back hope, but gives them back personal responsibility, right? And teaching them the tactical and practical, stop doing strategies and tactics to take their health back and take back that autonomy and take control of their future.
So I love that. The 3 tiers of healthcare, which is like for me is mind blowing. You said something at the beginning. I wanna circle back. You're known for building powerful teams, and I've been around remarkable. There's exactly what you guys are, a collection of like superheroes. So when the doctor listening to us right now and they're thinking, you know what, I get the certainty, I do my routines and I get my headspace right, but then they show up to the office. So how do you communicate? Can you give us some wisdom here, some insight on how do you communicate that certainty, that confidence, that energy to your team? So you're not carrying the boulder by yourself.
It's an awesome question. And, it's critical that you do this right. We teach our docs to take this stepwise approach. The first step is to get yourself right as the leader. The next step is get your team right? So you got to speak into your team and get your team stabilized and solid. And then you've got to speak into your patient base, and then you can speak into your community, right? So those are the stages of it, right? So it does start with the leader. This is very much an inside out process. So you start with yourself, get yourself right. So you have total clarity, conviction, and certainty. And then you'll be able to convey that into your team and then get your team right? So it is so critical that you recognize that they're human beings too, right? So they're out in it. They're in this world, right? And for the most part, they may be philosophically strong, and there's a whole continuum. Some of the team members, some of the CEs I've met are stronger than the doctors, frankly. Okay. And I mean that as a compliment to the CAs, not a criticism to the doctors, right? So some of the CAs are just so awesome. Now, at the same time, we have to remember that they are not chiropractors, and they have not spent 4 years in school, committed their life to a career, made the kind of investment that we've made in ourselves and in opening a business and running our business. They have not spent 5, 10, 15, 25, 35 years immersed in the, not only studying the philosophy, but living the philosophy, right? They haven't seen the thousands of cases that we've seen, the results that we've seen. So they don't have the same granite under their feet that we do. So as leaders, we can't take that for granted. So everything that we do in the remarkable practice is always heart, head, hands, feet. So the heart is the why. Like, make sure that whenever you communicate with your team or with your patients or with your community, you always have to start with the heart. See, chiropractors, we're so on purpose that we forget to talk about it. Right? Like we're so on mission that we forget to get everyone on the team oriented towards that mission, right? So you always have to just start with the heart, right? And make sure that they're on board and they understand and they're engaged because they understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I don't mean just from like this pontificating, top of the mountain type speech, but like every single thing you do, you always start with the heart, whether it's a team huddle or it's a team meeting or a team training or beginning of a workshop, report of findings, new patient consultation, whatever it is, just always start with the heart. So you get everybody engaged so that when you do get into the head, which is what are we doing? And the hands, how do we do it? And the feet is like, okay, let's go, right? They're with you. Don't leave your team behind, especially in today's day and age, because if you do, what's going to end up happening is they're your front line. And as we have this interface with the world, they're either going to start commiserating with everybody and, they're going to get caught up in the conversations that everybody's happening. And that's a disaster, right? Or they're just going to avoid it altogether and it's going to feel irrelevant, right? So, and that's almost as bad, right? So we want to make sure that we recognize that healing begins on the phone, healing begins at the door, healing begins at the front desk with your team. So make sure that you invest in them so that they're ready to be part of it. So by the time the patients get to your table, they're already going 100 miles an hour.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So I have one more question, but before, can you tell us, I know you always have events, you always have things coming up. What do you have coming up with the remark? People want to learn more about you and your work. Do you have, I've been part of 3, 4, 5 events. You guys doing an outstanding job. So what do you have coming up?
Thanks, man. So here's my observation. I got eyes into a couple thousand practices. So here's what I know around the world to be true. There's only 2 types of chiropractic practices in the world today. those that have educated their patients and those that wish they had. Right. So wherever you are right now listening to this, you know where you are in this, right? So wherever you are on that continuum, you might be like, oh yeah, no, we've been crushing it. Yeah, we've been so committed to patient education. Like when this came, our patients we actually grew because there was a crazy virus in town. Right. Right. And it's amazing, Roberta, you got practices that are half a mile away from each other, and one of them is shuttered, right? The one of them is shutting down because there's a crazy virus in town, and the one walking distance away is having best week, best month, best year ever because there's a crazy virus in town. The only difference is the perspective, right? And the patient's paradigm and understanding of the value that we deliver in their life, right? So at the end of the day, the one message that we need to bring to our communities is chiropractic makes you stronger. So as we recognize that, it was all about the strength of the host, and it has been throughout this, and it always has been. Let's go back to, my philosophy one professor, Fred Barge at Life University back in 92. Fred Barge, man, it's like the seed in the soil, right? So we'll go back to the original teaching. It's about the strength of the host, right? So what we have to recognize is that everybody right now understands that this is a very contagious virus, but it's very dangerous to a very select group of people, and that's called the immunocompromised, right? People for the first time understand that this is really dangerous based on how healthy or how sick you are, right? So it's dangerous to the sick and the weak, and the last thing you want to be, as always, especially right now, is be weak, right? So if our message in chiropractic, if we could just all band together and just get one message out to our community, chiropractic makes you stronger. Right. That's got to be the takeaway. Right. So your interpretation of what that means is probably going to vary depending on where you are on that continuum. But even the most vitalistic practitioner is going to have one interpretation of that. And the chiropractor who's about adjusting sprained ankles, wherever you are, chiropractic makes you stronger. Right. And that needs to be our brand promise into our community. You've got to learn how to convey that. You've got to learn how to teach that. And that's exactly what our next event is about. So we teach the Remarkable Retention Immersion. It's coming up in October, which is all about patient education, right? It's about retention is all about patient education. We talk about early phase retention, where we teach the expectations and agreements that set up for long-term care. So staying under care becomes the default, right? To the mid-stage retention, which is really all about this continuing education process, table talk, the workshop, progress reports. And then we get into the reconversion process, which is second, third care plans, wellness care, family wellness programs, et cetera. So we cover the whole spectrum, and it comes down to how do you convey to your patients that message? How do you teach patients that chiropractic makes you stronger and that chiropractic is a lifestyle success strategy for healthy human beings? It's not just limited to a short-term treatment modality for a crisis or a symptom.
Awesome. And what is the link for the event, the website?
So the Remarkable Retention Immersion for the U.S. audience or for the North America audience is in October, coming up in October 2021. It's going to be in Chicago. It's going to be live. Thank you, Lord. Awesome. October 22 and 23. Can't wait to get everybody together. And here's the key to this, guys. We got a long winter ahead. I'm predicting that this is going to be a cat circus. This winter is going to get interesting, right? So you want to get your team ready for that, right? So get your team together with our teams. We have awesome teams. It's a great community, like-minded people. It's got a great energy. Roberta, you've been there, you know it. And the training, it's a hardcore training. So you'll leave skilled up. Your team will go back on fire. Their hearts will be engaged. Their heads will be clear and engaged. Their hands will be busy. Their feet will be moving. And it's all about skill and drilling and getting them to point where they're so confident teaching their the patients rolling out of an event like that. You're going to want to have that momentum to carry you through the winter. And if you're listening to this in Australasia, for our Australasian clients, for our audience over there, we have a virtual immersion that we're going to be doing because Australia is locked down, right? So we're going to do that on October 29th and 30th for our Australasian audience. So Chicago live, October 22 and 23. And then for Australasia, it's going to be virtual, the 29th and the 30th.
And I'm going to put the links below here in the video too.
That would be awesome. Thanks,
one more way that you impact my life. My first talk for Australia actually was for the Remarkable Practice, and I remember my speaking time was from 1:30 a.m. until 4 a.m. My wife goes, "Oh, you're gonna yeah." I want to take a nap. I want to wake up 11:30, take a shower, drink coffee. She's like, I just love it, brother. I just love it.
You got to show up fully caffeinated for the Australian event, man. It's
I just
crazy.
love it, brother. You know, like always a pleasure. Want to respect your time, buddy. This is great, man. I took away so many nuggets here. My favorite thing from today is the unifying message of chiropractic makes you stronger. I know made my family stronger. My wife, my 2 babies, myself. So, brother, thanks so much. I love you. Appreciate you. Any final closing thoughts for chiropractors out there?
You know what? I just want people to be encouraged. You've been training for this your whole life, right? Chiropractic has always been in a battle, and the battles are continuing. And there's interesting battles to come. There's definitely interesting battles to come. If I could, I'll use this time to promote the Chiropractic Defense Council.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Which is more necessary now more than ever, right? So we're clearly facing some incredible battles, and I use that word incredible. I cannot believe we're actually at this place right now, but we have some incredible battles that we're facing, and they're legal battles, right? So the Chiropractic Defense Council is a SEAL team. It's a specialized team. It's a legal team. It's backed with a research team and regulatory specialists, a PR firm, and it's this small group of teched up specialists who have one purpose, and that's to defend the right of the practicing chiropractor. So you can stay focused on where you have influence. So we need your support, which means we need your financial support. So go to defendchiropractic.org and get behind the Chiropractic Defense Council, because they're behind you.
Awesome. Brother, I love you, man. Thanks so much. God bless you and your beautiful family. And we talk soon, buddy. Bye.
Hey, man. Bless you and your beautiful family, man. I mean, you've been praising me and my family, man. You're just like a tree is known by its fruit, brother. And your family is just so beautiful. It's so awesome to watch you guys. And I can't wait till we're in the same room again, man.
Me too, buddy.
Let's make that happen sooner than later.
Let's do it.
Thanks, man.
Bro. All right. Thanks, everybody. Peace.
God bless everybody.